Hello YouTube. So it's been a while since I've made a video. I figured it was about time. So just a quick catch up on what's been going on. A couple weeks ago I got interviewed for a documentary by YouTube user SmartBoy2. I'll put his name down here in the show notes. He's a fan of my videos, actually. We've interacted on Twitter quite a bit. And when I do Ask Brins, he's always got a bunch of questions for me, so it's pretty cool. Let's see. So, yeah, so I went up to Milwaukee, and he's doing a documentary on positivity and, positive outlooks and, the effects that kind of stuff has. So, pretty cool. I've never been interviewed before, and we had a lovely conversation, like 2 hours, and he assures me that the editing process is going really well. So hopefully I'll be able to see, a segment of that soon, in the next couple of weeks, I think. So that's pretty cool. That's the kind of thing that, it's the opportunities I get only because I do these videos and because I interact with all of you. And so thank you for that. Thank you for watching and, commenting and subscribing. And, I do this stuff because I'm pretty privileged in my life. I have a lot of stability, so I am able to put myself out there at a bit less risk than some people. But and I want people to see that there's success available. There is stability available, and you can become an old lady like me, and be true to yourself. So it's pretty cool. So that happened, and my girlfriend and I went to Dyke March this past weekend because it is Pride weekend, or it was Pride weekend. We'd always gone to the Pride parade, but it's so huge, and there's a million people, and they're all standing really close, and the music's really loud, and people are smoking, and sometimes it's not nicotine, and there's drunk people and a lot of straight people, and it has an atmosphere that is not particularly welcoming to trans people, generally speaking. There's usually like one, maybe two gender-specific floats, but for the most part it's like sort of big, flashy, A-gay type stuff, cis-gay white males up partying on the float, and, loud oompa-oompa music, and, it's just not a lot of fun for me. And it's so far removed from what Pride is remembering, It's supposed to be commemorating the riots at the Stonewall Inn in New York in 1969. And those were what we would call trans women of color today, but at the time often identified as drag queens or transvestites. But it was, Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera and a number of other people who were just tired of the New York cops coming in and busting them all the time for cross-dressing laws and anti-homosexuality laws, and doing ID checks all the time, and they just had enough. It had been happening over and over and over again, and this was just the last straw. And it was, excuse me. So they had a riot. I mean, they rioted. They threw things at the police and their cars, and 3 days long, and it was a mess. It was it was not an orderly, semi-orderly parade marching down the street. It was people who were already oppressed reaching their breaking point. And so, modern pride parades tend to overlook that. You'll see some stuff about Stonewall, but in fact, I think they're making a Stonewall movie now, but the main actors are white cis people. So, it's difficult to be at a pride parade for me. So anyway, my girlfriend and I went to the Chicago Dyke March instead. And this is the first time we've been to the Dyke March, and the Chicago Dyke March, and I can't speak for anyone else's, is expressly trans-friendly. So explicitly trans-welcoming. It's in all of the paperwork, and you know, some of the chants were, you know, about transphobia, and it was really, really cool. And we went with another couple that we met on Tumblr, one of whom was also a trans woman. So there were trans people everywhere. It was really cool. And, I mean, there were a lot of cis lesbians, too. I'm not trying to say that, you know, the majority of people were trans, but it was very clearly trans welcoming, and it was just a delight to be there. We all met at a high school in Humboldt Park, and walked through the neighborhood, which is a primarily Puerto Rican neighborhood, because Chicago Dyke March partnered with, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but I think it's Orgullo, a local Puerto Rican community organization, was my understanding. So we had this mile-long march through the neighborhood, ended up in actual Humboldt Park, the park, where there was music and resources and tables, and there was, you know, food being grilled, and there was, you know, cold beverages, and it was just really nice. Like, there was felt much more like actual community, and it was so much more welcoming. So that was cool. And I did my nails in trans pride colors, even though people keep asking me if it's red, white, and blue for the 4th. That's fine. It doesn't make me out myself, so that's pretty cool. Anyway, so the topic that I wanted to talk about was coming out, in addition to Pride. But it's a topic that's come up for me a couple of times in the last few weeks. People have, you know, asked me for advice, or, you know, they talked about sort of failed coming out attempts that they've had. And so the first piece of advice that I would give is only come out if it's safe for you to do so. If you are reliant on someone else for food and lodging and financial support for school, or, you know, anything that you would be putting at serious risk by coming out because you have an inkling that your parents or, you know, responsible guardian is likely to kick you out or cut you off for coming out to them, don't do it. You're not obligated. And I know that Pride weekend, you know, you can kind of get a rush from being around all of these, you know, all these queer people, you know, people like you, and it's exciting and feels so empowering, but it's also sort of risky. You know, it makes you perhaps make questionable decisions, you know. So I want you to make sure that when you decide to come out, you are considering, you know, the risks that you're putting yourself at. And you're always putting yourself at some risk, in the sense of you're having to be very vulnerable to people to whom you have been guarded in the past. You know, if they don't know already that you're gay or you're trans or whatever, they have a particular definition of you that they've built over the years. And you are forcing them to redefine that, you know? And it doesn't always go well. Some people are more resistant to redefinition than others. They like having their, you know, boxes that they put people in. This is my guy friend, or this is my white friend, or this is my, you know, whatever, right? They have a particular definition of you, or boxes that they've checked off for you, and you're telling them you're wrong, and you need to re-examine and you know, input new information into your, you know, matrix here or whatever, right? Some people are going to take that better than others. So you're the best judge of who is likely to take this information well or poorly. You know, and you can sort of set the stage a little bit. There's always some news story about a gay person or a trans person, and if you can manage to work that into a conversation and get an idea of, you know, well, how do you feel about, you know, this stuff, right? That might give you a little bit better of an idea of what to expect if you were to come out to that person. That said, it's easy to let fear get in the way of that. Like, I was not out to my dad for a long, long time, and I was raised by my dad because my mom died when I was really young. So even when I was independent, his opinion of me and our relationship was always very important to me. However, I was wrong when it came to how I thought he was going to take it. You know, he'd always given me the impression that he was never particularly queer-friendly. My best friend when I was in high school is gay, and my dad was always a little suspicious, you know, at how much we would hang out, and, you know, sort of what that meant about my sexuality and, you know, how he was supposed to conceive of his son. So I always took that to mean that he would be very resistant and angry and, you know, sort of phobic about all of that. But when I did finally work up the nerve to come out to him, he was very accepting. He didn't understand everything, and that's okay. We've talked about it since, and, you know, he understands a little better than he did in the beginning. But you know, I had the wrong read on him. So, you may have the wrong read on whoever you're coming out to, one way or the other. That's just a danger that you're putting yourself in because you're making yourself vulnerable. And it's always hard to make ourselves vulnerable, but most of the time I find it's pretty rewarding. That said, somebody told me they were coming out to their parents and asked me some advice on how to do that. The letter they initially had written was sort of clinical and distant, and I can understand the temptation for that. It was also pretty long, because it's a lot easier to open up about some of your information if you are being, you know, sort of removed from it, and it makes you less vulnerable and less at risk, or at least it feels like it is. But it also is distancing between this person you have a relationship with that you're trying to, you know, be honest to. So, I'm going to read the response that I sent to this person. Obviously, it's going to be different for your own situation, because you're not always coming out to your parents. Sometimes you're coming out to your friends, or your coworkers, or your boss, or, you know, your kids, or your partner, or whatever. So what I said was, the advice I always give is threefold: to keep it short, keep it sure, and keep it personal. There's a limit to the amount of information, especially jarring information, that the human mind can absorb at once. It's best to give the most salient information and be sure they know that this is the beginning of the conversation and not the end. Don't be apologetic for who you are, just lay it out and make it personal. For example, Mom, Dad, I've been struggling with accepting this truth about myself. I'm transgender. That means that although the doctor told you it's a boy, and you have always believed me to be a man, the truth is I'm a woman. I'm taking steps necessary under the care of my therapist and physicians to make my body better align with my actual gender. I know this might be hard to hear, but I want you to know that this isn't something that you caused. This isn't something that I can suppress or change. I've hated every minute that I couldn't be honest with you, but the time has finally come where I can bring you fully into my life. Again, I know this might be shocking, so I expect that we'll have more discussions along the way, and I'm always willing to answer your questions to the best of my ability. We're on a new road now, and we're going to have some difficult patches as we get to know each other again. I love you, and I'm so grateful for all the love and support you've given me over the years. I hope I can count on that to continue as we travel this road together. So that's, you know, that's just sort of a sample, right? But you keep it short. Just give the most basic information so that they can absorb that and generate questions, because they're going to have questions. And there's no way that, you know, if you write a 5-page letter like I did, you're going to answer all of them. There's always going to be other questions you didn't anticipate. So it's best to just start the conversation and let it happen from there. Now, in this case, the person is sending a letter to their parents. They're not having a face-to-face conversation or an over-the-phone conversation. I think that if it's possible, you should have a face-to-face conversation. But it all depends on the dynamics of your own relationship. So if you are writing a letter, make sure they know that they can contact you. If you are having a face-to-face conversation, it's perfectly fine to write out a letter and then read it there. And this way you're not stumbling over words or struggling to react to the reactions they're giving you rather than, getting your message out. So, like everything, it's so very personal. Like, you're the one who knows these people. You're the one who knows your situation and is best able to determine, the best way to come out. Now, somebody else on Tumblr had mentioned that they tried to come out as bigender to their parents, and they told them it was a phase. So by that, I assume they're pretty young. And they asked me for strategies on how to, affirm their maleness, like when they're having a boy day, because they're female assigned at birth and their parents only see them as a woman, or a young woman. That's the kind of stuff I was talking about, where you know your situation better, and sometimes it's not safe to come out. So what you can do are just find little indicators that you can imbue with the meaning of, this is me recognizing my male day. So, like, if it's a particularly, if it's a watch, like it's a men's watch. Oftentimes, if you're, female coded, you can get away with wearing a men's watch, and that is a symbol to yourself of, I'm having a guy day, and if you have friends that you can trust, you can tell them, if you see this pendant or this ring or this watch or, this particular shirt or jacket or something, that's my symbol that I'm having a guy day. And it would really help me out if you would use he, him pronouns. Or, if you are, male assigned and you're having a femme day, or if you are a trans woman but incapable of coming out because of your living situation, same thing applies. You can get a particular ring, or I have small wrists, so I always wore women's watches anyway. But, if you have people you can trust, then you can let them in on, what that indicator is, and they can use the proper name and the proper pronouns to reaffirm your identity for you, without jeopardizing, your livelihood and your life. So anyway, the most important thing is to be safe. Don't feel obligated to come out. Don't feel pressured to come out, especially around Pride time, where you feel invincible and just capable of anything, and so brave, and sometimes so stupid. So, anyway, just be safe. Take care of yourself. Seek love and community where you can, but never put yourself at risk of getting kicked out. Like, I understand, especially if you're young, it feels like, 3 years, 5 years is forever, and you have to be in the closet that long from your parents or whatever. It feels like an eternity, but you have your whole life ahead of you, and that 5 years is going to go by, and it's going to happen, and you're going to come out the other side of it, and you'll have the freedom that you need, and you can be who you need to be, and you can be separate from, you can separate yourself from those people who are putting your life in jeopardy otherwise. So, anyway, just be careful, be safe, be happy. All right, my loves, I am signing off. You can always reach me at brin@bigender.net. I'm on Tumblr and YouTube at BrinConvenient. Also Twitter. You can send me, private message at any of those. You can send me an ask on Tumblr, and I'll answer it there. If you send it to me on YouTube, I'm more likely to use it in a video, but my videos are sort of few and far between. Anyway, leave comments. Join us on the forum at bigender.net/forum. And I hope to see you there. All right, loves.